All right, welcome to RealGM Radio. Joining me today, Matt Issa. You know him as an NBA writer at SB Nation, Forbes Sports, Opta analyst, really knowledgeable guy who I always enjoy talking with in person. He's joining the radio show for the first time here, and I'm excited to talk about a whole bunch of topics. We're going to discuss which teams that we believe in the most at the top of the Eastern Conference. We're going to go through the top four: the Celtics, the Cavs, the Knicks, and the Pistons. We actually start recording this episode right as news breaks about Cade Cunningham's collapsed lung, and that he's going to be out for an extended period of time now for the Detroit Pistons. Might be back in time for the playoffs. We discuss how that impacts Detroit, who needs to step up in the meantime, and what this means for their chances to make it to the NBA Finals. So we dive into all of that, and then finally we end with a conversation going through a bunch of our candidates for most improved, and a bigger conversation about what most improved should actually mean and what kind of players should be awarded in that category. So really fun episode. Hope you enjoy it. Let's jump in. All right, welcome to another edition of RealGM Radio. Good friend of mine, Matt Issa, is here. First-time guest on RealGM Radio. Really excited to talk with you. Thanks for jumping on. We got a bunch of stuff to get to. I want to talk about the top of the Eastern Conference and just basically who do we think is going to come out of the East at this point, because I do think it's a really interesting question. Plus, I want to talk about some most improved player candidates, something I know you wrote about recently. But let's start with the big news from this morning. Cade Cunningham is going to be out for quite a while with what turns out to be basically a collapsed lung. We're basically getting reporting on this in real time as we're recording. He's all we know right now is that he's going to miss an extended period of time. This is on the heels of taking a pretty tough shot to the back in Detroit's game the other night. Cunningham didn't play in the Pistons' last game, and so the Pistons were already getting prepared to miss Cunningham for a little bit, but now it sounds like, Matt, it's going to be a long time. Obviously, dramatic impact to the Pistons, to the Eastern Conference. Where do you want to begin with this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess who would, well, now they traded Jaden Ivey. Who do you think is going to kind of step in and fill the role? You have Dennis Jenkins. I still have a lot of Marcus Sasser stock. But yeah, it's just that's such a man. Is he the most like important in terms of floor raising players in the NBA right now?
I don't think there's a question, right? I mean, Detroit is nowhere offensively without Cade.
Yeah, so man, this is gonna really suck for them. This is terrible. I'm just sitting here looking we said it yeah, Cade's out. Star players miss games. That's bad tragedy. But
to your point, right? Like Denver was able to stay over 500 without Jokic. We've seen the Thunder play without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There's so much depth and so many options on those teams. Where with this Pistons team, first of all, is relatively new to being this good, right? And so they're still sort of just figuring out what it is to be this. And now all of a sudden they can't be this anymore because their MVP candidate in Cade is going to be out. I do think that's an interesting place to start because, like, who steps in now without Cade Cunningham? Because the big problem with the Pistons, if we were going to start trying to nitpick on the number one team in the Eastern Conference, is that they don't have much shot creation outside of Cade Cunningham. Now, I guess the argument would be they have zero shot creation, but they're going to have to create shots somehow, and it will be interesting to see how JB Bickerstaff goes about that.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dennis. I wonder if they go like a point Asar thing and try to see how much Amen is in Asar. And you'll have a little bit more spacing because Asar will be the one on the ball. You can put another shooter out there, maybe go like Kevin Huerter and Duncan Robinson out there. It won't be great. It really won't be great. And this 4 to 6 week timeline puts them in place to, potentially have to go through it. First of all, now the 1 seed in the East is not guaranteed, right? You're 3.5 games ahead of the Celtics, I believe, and both teams play. Let's see here. This is bad radio. 14 games ish, right? So that's not guaranteed. Okay. But say you do, by some miracle come away with the 1 seed, minor miracle, come away with the 1 seed. You're gonna do you want to play Atlanta right now? Is what you're seeing from Atlanta right now better than Detroit without Cade Cunningham?
I don't think that there's a question. Yes.
Yeah. The Hornets. The Hornets might have been able to beat them before Cade Cunningham went down. So what do you think they're going to do to him now? So this isn't, 4 to 6 weeks is, yeah, this might be
And the tough part about this
Mhm.
too is we've already passed that period where players had to get released in order to participate for teams in the playoffs. So even somebody like Chris Paul, who I don't think was has he officially been waived? I don't even know if he's a free agent, but like that would be a name out there that maybe you say, okay, let's go add him just to have somebody that can run a pick and roll for
Mhm.
us. Lonzo Ball is out there if they wanted to try to make an outside addition, but his whole injury history is what it is. Could they go after somebody like Cole Anthony? I think is available. Like we're starting to scrap the bottom of the barrel, like the very bottom of the barrel. You're probably better just riding with the guys that you've had, whether it's a Marcus Sasser, who is definitely going to get some run. I would probably guess he steps into the starting job and they keep bringing Jenkins off the bench and things like that. But I also will be intrigued to see the other guy. Like you mentioned, Desar Thompson. Can he step? They needed Desar Thompson to kind of step into a little bit more of a playmaking wing role anyway, even with
Mhm.
Cade, right? Like he was. I think I wrote a piece about for RealGM about the biggest X factors in the league going forward, and Desar Thompson was one of them for me because he hasn't really taken that step. He's gotten a little bit better as a ball handler this year, but he hasn't really taken a step into being a playmaker. I've been impressed with some of the stuff I've seen from Ron Holland, and I do wonder if they just experiment with that a little bit more. If they almost just say Asar, Ron, like compete against each other to see who gets the most touches offensively now. But really, I think the key is going to be like, do they have somebody who can run a real pick and roll with Jalen Duren and just sort of maybe spamming that more than they even have this season?
Yeah, I mean, and then there's Karis LeVert, right? He's the other kind
It's
of
a great point.
part of this equation. We've seen that he can get a bucket and play point guard at times, but it's really going to be by committee, I think, at the end of the day. And it's going to have to just. The problem with Kate losing Kate is like, like say, like, okay, say this was the exact same team and then they lost Luka Doncic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you could make the argument, okay, they're going to get better on defense, right? So maybe you can, scrap together enough offense and be this elite defense, right? But with Cade, like he's a really good defensive player, So it's like you can't say like, oh, we're losing our weak link. You might be getting worse on defense because now you're gonna have to play lineups with like Herter, Robinson
No
together, or
question.
Sasser and Robinson together. So yeah, it's so sad. Like they've been such a great story this year, but yeah, I don't know. It does not. I wouldn't pick them in a playoff series at this point.
I don't even know if this is worth exploring at this point. But I guess we don't know how long he's going to be out. I don't even know how long a collapsed lung typically keeps people. Again, this news broke right as we were recording here. I'm gonna just Google collapsed lung injury timeline NBA while we're doing this. Um, could be 3 to 8 weeks based on my initial Google search. This is a story off of SB Nation 14 minutes ago. So 3 to 8 weeks is at least what SB Nation says it could be. That means that Cade could potentially return for the playoffs. Maybe the Pistons lose a little bit of ground in the Eastern Conference standings. If he's back for the playoffs, let's reframe the conversation. Let's assume they get Cade back and that Cade is at least somewhere where he was prior to this injury. Were you buying the Pistons as a team in the that could come out of the Eastern Conference? Like, where were you at on Detroit? Because I know that there's definitely skeptics that have issues with their shot creation and their spacing. But then you look at their net rating and it's very good. Their defense is obviously elite. Cade Cunningham playing at an MVP level. Where were you at with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's always it's always a tricky dance to do because I'm when I do go to games, I'm usually at a Pistons game, right? And so there's a lot of people there that are really excited about them. They've been covering the team for a long time, so they want to be excited about something. But I mean, yeah, I was not. You see like these top end teams like they have like San Antonio, I think Boston the other night, like they've really been able to corral this Cade Duren pick and roll, which is done wonders for the Pistons this year and was huge for them in the playoffs against the Knicks. So offensively, it's like it's tricky to see how versatile this playoff offense can be, considering it is so much Cade Cunningham spread pick and roll, Cade Cunningham post touches, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, but they have an identity. They have a distinct identity. They play physical. They play together. Like I don't think they would be an easy team for any team to take out. But no, I don't. I never really saw the top end. And you kind of see this with the sports books are usually more dialed in on this than a lot of people, and they have them as the fourth best odds. This was before the Cade stuff came out. The fourth best odds to win the Eastern Conference. So they view the Knicks and the Cavs as better than them as well as the Celtics. But No, I didn't have like the most stock. I didn't view them. Let's put it this way. I'm doing a power rankings piece for SB Nation literally right as we speak. Like it's in the Google Docs, and they were not in my true contender tier.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
lower on them than I am.
Okay.
I
You still saw them as first or
I
third?
would have had them prior to this Cade thing as real contenders. I understand all the concerns, and they're real, right? We haven't really seen a team like Detroit. We've seen a team like Detroit make the finals. We haven't seen them win the finals in a very long time, where they were so ISO, like just one guy is running our offense, and even you can, I think the closest comparison to this Pistons team is last year's Thunder team with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander winning the MVP by basically carrying the offense and then playing elite defense. And there was a point in the season where the Pistons were turning opponents over at a higher rate than the Thunder were last year, and we didn't talk about the Pistons defense quite like we talked about that Thunder buzzsaw for whatever reason, but their turnover rate was higher. But and it's still really high, and the two best defenses by a mile this year are Oklahoma City and Detroit. The difference between last year's Oklahoma City team and this year's Detroit team is that outside of Shea, they had Jalen Williams. And then the other guys, like Chet Holmgren, can do stuff off the bounce in a way that Jalen Duren really can't. Even though Duren's face-up game has gotten a little bit better this year, it's still not where you'd be like, Game 7, I feel good about this. But, the Thunder had options, and the Pistons just don't have them right now. I think Ron Holland and Nassar Thompson could potentially get there. They're just not there yet. And so they're a little bit younger. So maybe they're 2 years, 3 years ago, Oklahoma City Thunder, and they're on their way to being something that's a little bit better and more well-rounded. That said, like I looked at the Eastern Conference and I'm like, yeah, I can nitpick all these teams. The one thing I know about Detroit is that they're going to beat the snot out of you. They're going to offensive rebound. They're going to give themselves opportunities. They're a good passing team, even outside of Cade. Like they're really connected. They're well coached and they know who they are. To your point, like they have a really strong identity, and I think that could carry you maybe not through the Western Conference, but through the Eastern Conference. Like I think that they could punch the Knicks in the face and the Knicks would wobble. I think they could punch the Cavs in the face and the Cavs would wobble. We'll talk about Boston here in a second, but like we didn't know really anything about the Celtics until Jason Tatum came back. Like that was a big up in the air thing. And then you're not really afraid of anybody else, really, I don't think, in the East. Maybe we could talk about some of those teams, but I thought the Pistons had as good a shot as coming out of the East as anybody. And if they're in the finals, then I think you have to consider them a contender. But that's where I was at with Detroit. Now, obviously, with the Cade thing, that whole thing. I mean, they could, if he's not back for the first round, they could be a first round out, right? And I'll sit here and say, like, I wouldn't have been surprised if they lost in the first round if it was the right matchup. But I think we had to consider them a contender.
I would. So I had them. I guess. I think the thing I should say, I had them as like a outer circle contender, not an inner circle contender. Before I get to,
did you have anybody in the East as an inner circle contender?
So I put Boston and then Cleveland, just because I wanted to have 2 East, 2 West. Because I mean, in theory, like you said, if you make the finals, you're a contender. Like you have a shot. You have a better shot than anybody else, right? If you make the finals, like your beloved Zombie Heat that year, right? They were contenders. They were in the finals.
That was a weird year. Well, let's talk about Boston because I think that's the natural next place to go. So they blow the pants off the Warriors last night, which is in and of itself not all that impressive, given that the Warriors are the way that they are with their roster and their injuries. But the impressive part is how Jason Tatum looked. Since he's gotten back, he's averaging 20.6 points on 8.5 rebounds, 4 assists in those 6 games. Last night against the Warriors was his most efficient shooting game since he came back, and all of those numbers are trending in the right direction since he was pretty inefficient when he first got back. But now that he's knocked the rust off, he had a move last night, crossover on Kristaps Porzingis, and then finishing with the offhand from basically under the basket, and you're just like, this guy's back, man. I am so blown away by how good Jason Tatum looks. And I got to tell you, Matt, I'm watching that game, and I'm watching these last couple games for Boston, and I'm thinking, are we just done here? There's not a better team in the Eastern Conference right now than Boston. I think I'm fully there. I didn't want to get there. I think I'm fully there.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I was looking at their record since Tatum's been back. But yeah, I mean, they are the best team in the East. Yes. I was watching them play the Suns the other night. I didn't catch yesterday's Warriors game, but like there's just moments where, when that ball is moving, right? Like Tatum was like he was getting into, he was buying into that kind of new motion offense, the pick and roll. And that side to side action and all that good stuff. And yeah, their offense is incredible. They defend so hard. Like Peyton Pritchard, okay. So in that Suns game, Devin Booker was cooking. Like he was cooking. Derek White was in foul trouble. So the Celtics adjustment was let's put Peyton Pritchard on Devin Booker. Okay. And he just locked him up for 2.5 minutes. I know you can't lock up the all-time greats, whatever, but he locked him up for 2 minutes. Okay. He just felt like that's just a guy like who on any other team, like that archetype, like that little small jitterbug scoring guard is, mincemeat in the playoffs. And this guy like just defends his ass off. I don't know if I can swear on here, but he defends very hard. And like you have all of these big, strong bodies too. And then now they don't even need like Jordan Walsh, who's an incredible basketball player. Hugo Gonzalez barely plays. They have Baylor Shireman. They're deeper. This team is deeper than they've ever been. Okay. You have guys that you have more, I think, versatility. You don't have to always play that 5 out, right? You could still play it with Vooch or Garza. But now you have like a true rim protecting big in Neemias Queta, who's been one of the most improved players of the league this year. They can beat anybody, but at the same time, like in that Suns game, you got to see the good old, late game, things get a little sticky. Don't please Miami Heat, don't walk through the door because we're not going to be able to dribble in the gaps anymore. So I wouldn't say they're a juggernaut, but this is a very, very good basketball team. And yeah, I would say they're the best team in the East right now.
So the end of that Suns game was really interesting. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, they put Pritchard on Booker. They were also really good at doubling Booker up high near midcourt, and that's something that they've routinely done over the last couple of years. But they are so on a string behind that. And I think what impresses me the most is that this is such a new roster. It's so revamped. And I made the case on an earlier episode of RealGM Radio that the Tatum injury might be the best thing to ever happen to the Celtics because it gave them cover to get off of the older aging group of Drew Holiday and Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. While beloved in Boston, if we're all being honest, we're not the same players they were last year as they were even in the finals team that they won in 2024. And so it gave them the right cover of, well, Tatum's out, so we might as well just start to reset the books now. And instead, they don't take this gap year. They're very good without Tatum. Jaylen Brown obviously gets a lot of that credit. Joe Mazzulla, I think, is the coach of the year at this point. And we also forget, like, they started off the year really bad. And you had Celtics fans being like, all right, well, that's it. We're just going to be like what the Pacers are right now. It's just like, okay, gap year, and we just regroup in the summer, and we come back hopefully stronger next time. But Mazzulla figured it out. They started tinkering with the offense a little bit. They really started crashing the offensive boards. They found a new identity, a couple of new things that worked for them. And then they've been the best team in the East since then. And that's a pretty long stretch here. Now they have Tatum back, and I'm still just blown away by how he looks. And then last night against the Warriors, we get 56 combined points between Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're playing off of each other. I am so floored by how good Tatum looks and how it just feels like, not just how good Tatum looks, like you get all this new cast and they're still the Boston Celtics. Like they're still playing very similarly. Like they still look like the Celtics of old, where they have all these new players stepping into these roles, whether it is a Baylor Shireman or a Jordan Walsh for a big point of the season or Hugo Gonzalez, who's a rookie, or all these guys. Then they trade Anthony Simons. They get Vucevic, and I'm just like, all right, that's a little interesting. Vucevic goes down, and it doesn't even matter. So basically, you lose Simons for essentially nothing, who was a really good, perimeter scorer for you. And then they're rolling still. And, part of that is getting Tatum back to fill that spot in the rotation. But Pritchard starting for most of the year, and then he comes off the bench, and he's still rolling. I can't believe how plug and play this Boston Celtics team looks. And I don't even mean it feels like I'm belittling it, because I think all the credit goes to Mazzulla and Brad Stevens for identifying these players who can step into those roles. And then obviously Tatum for nailing that rehab, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I think I saw this quote. I'm assuming it was Jay King of The Athletic who wrote it. But he was saying where most people would see gap year, like Mazzulla sees endless possibility. And I actually sent that to my head coach. I coach high school basketball. And I was like, because next year, like we're losing a lot of seniors. So some people would see it as like a gap year. And I'm like, this has got to be us. Like we've got a Mazzulla ball this. But yeah, he is, for what my money's worth. And I know it's hard to measure coaches, but like I think he's proven to be the best coach in basketball with just the job he's done.
He's the coach of the year, and it's not close to me, honestly. So in terms of their championship viability, like we think that they're the best team in the East, but if they do end up in the NBA Finals, look, if Jaylen Brown is playing like this, if Tatum keeps trending in this direction, they've got. I think you could still punch Boston. I think you can out physical Boston. I still think they're a little they're a little vulnerable there. And I still have those questions about, okay, in crunch time, like you said, like at the end of that Phoenix game, it starts to get sticky. They start to pass it side to side. Nobody's really attacking. That tends to be where Jaylen Brown kind of becomes the hammer and just knocks the door down. But if he's not doing that in the playoffs, I do wonder if that's maybe how, if we're talking about teams like Detroit who have multiple defenders, New York who has multiple perimeter defenders, or if it's a team from the Western Conference in the NBA Finals, a team like Oklahoma City, obviously, or San Antonio, teams that have all these bodies to swarm on the perimeter. Those, I think, are teams that could give Boston trouble, and then obviously teams with like real bulk and muscle in the middle.
Yeah, they're not. This isn't the 17 Warriors, but they're a pretty good team.
Today's episode of RealGM Radio is brought to you by Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. It's America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you can cash in. You can choose from basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, UFC, and more. Plus, they've got features like early payouts and flex play, so you've got options while the games are still happening. I downloaded the app and I was surprised by how easy it was to get started. It took just a couple of minutes to build my first lineup. I've been making NBA lineups around players that I already follow, picking more or less on points and assists, and it honestly makes every possession way more fun to watch. I also love the social feature where you can see what other people are playing and copy lineups with one click. It's a cool way to learn and build better picks, and it's available in all 50 states. So it's easy for just about anyone to jump in. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. You said you had the Cavs.
Yeah,
as an inner circle.
I still have them. I still have hope.
All right, why?
Okay, so I should have done a better job of pulling this up beforehand, but I'm going to try to pull it up. Well, first of all, Donovan Mitchell he's one of the best playoff scorers. Like, if you give me, like, let me say this right now. Like, in the playoffs, for pure offensive reasons, give me Donovan Mitchell over Jalen Brunson. Give me Donovan Mitchell over Anthony Edwards. Like, I think he's that good of an offensive player. Like, he's a silver bullet.
You've got the numbers. I mean, his playoff scoring numbers are insane. I still think that he's one of the guys in the fourth quarter in crunch time. There's not a lot of guys that I would take over Donovan Mitchell. I'm fine with that, man. Like, Ant and Jalen Brunson, like, no slight. They're both awesome, obviously. Donovan Mitchell is right there with those guys.
Yeah, I know it was like one of those, like, I really threw some unnecessary shade at those guys because, like, who is talking about them right now? But here, I'm trying to pull up.
I don't think we talk about Donovan Mitchell in that same vein, right? Because Ant has been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Jalen Brunson plays in New York, and the Knicks were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And the Cavs have mostly been a playoff disappointment, so you wouldn't associate the Cavs with having some sort of playoff hero. Donovan Mitchell, like, the Cavs have been disappointing in the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell is not the problem there.
But anyway, back to what we were saying. So I know they haven't been able to be healthy. So I want to wait on that before I cast my full judgment on them. When they're, that new core 4 plays together, Harden, Mitchell, Allen, Mobley plays with Dean Wade. There's only 56 non-garbage time possessions, but they're a plus 23.5 right per 100. And that's a good sign. So hopefully we can get a little bit more to build this sample out. But like, I really I think that Harden Garland trade was one of those trades where both teams won. Like, Garland gives the Clippers, like, a jitterbug, youthful guy who can play off Kawhi and, play on ball as well and, just give them new life. Whereas Harden, he is more reliable, right? You need that reliability. He is more of a, great pick and roll passer, right? Garland's a very good pick and roll player, but Harden's a little bit better, right? Which is great for Allen and Mobley. And
especially in the playoffs where things get a little bit more crowded. He's got that size to pass over a defense.
Yes. And then the big thing, I think, is the positional versatility he gives them on defense, right? Where Harden's not a point guard on defense. He can guard threes, he can guard fours with his strength, with his hands, that veteran IQ. And so I think that helps them match up a little bit better. Like, I know they like to play Merrill a lot with those two, and Merrill has been very good for them this year, especially as a shooter. trying to fill in for that Max Strus role. And so now Merrill can guard, smaller guys, whereas Harden can guard up. I'm still holding out hope. I think they're like weirdly deep, right? Like they have like Jalen Tyson, who's had a great year. Of course, I mentioned Dean Wade. We're still waiting on Max Strus to walk through the door. Craig Porter Jr. has had a really nice year. Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, they both give like Dennis Schroeder gives them this ball pressure guy that they've never really had during their runs. I feel like a guy who could just like, okay, hey, like I need you to go in there for 4 minutes and just pick up this dude 94 feet, and he can do that. And then Keon Ellis is just like a walking turnover creator. And I feel like Keon Ellis has been one of those guys where like we're all waiting for his jumper, his like 3-point numbers to decline, and he just like keeps hitting threes. And you're like, you know what? This guy's actually a great shooter. So I don't know. They have nice depth. I think they're the second best team in the East. They can put together the most like versatile and balanced lineups.
So I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I even did a whole episode earlier this year about how I think when the Cavs were really kind of hitting rock bottom, I said they're going to be fine. There's too much talent for them to be this bad. They've gotten healthier, right? Like Strus has been okay in these couple of games since he's been back, and the Harden thing I think obviously changes their team for all the reasons that you're talking about, and I think those are all exactly those are all good points. When I watch them, I'm like, why aren't they better? And that's the part that I can't get over. I almost feel better about the Cavs when I don't watch them. And then I watch a Cavs game, and I know they've been without Jarrett Allen recently, and that really hurts, but there's just so many moments in these games where I'm like, why are you allowing this team to get back in? Why are you losing to Dallas? Why are these things happening to you? And where, you have something to play for, right? You're 2.5 games back the 3 seed. Like there's real stuff unless you're just cool being in the 4 seed, but I don't really get that sense from them. I don't get the sense that they're just taking their foot off the gas. Some of it might just be Harden getting used to things and introducing a big, new dynamic piece like that. Harden and Jarrett Allen had instant chemistry, which is not at all surprising. Jarrett Allen is a very traditional sort of rim-running lob threat guy, the kind of player that Harden has always played well with. Harden and Mobley do not have any chemistry together whatsoever, and maybe it's unfair to expect them to have some kind of chemistry because he just got there. But it's just in contrast to the chemistry that he already has with Jarrett Allen. It's kind of alarming. There was I forget who the Cavs were playing the other night, but like there was 2 straight plays where Harden is on the court with Mobley, Donovan Mitchell's not in the game, and they're just clearly trying to get Harden and Mobley going together, and they run 2 straight plays where Harden is supposed to pass it to Mobley near the basket, whether it was a lob or Mobley getting a post position and Harden throwing that entry pass, and both times the pass just missed. Like it just either flew over Mobley's head on the lob or they just couldn't connect on the entry pass. And I'm like, what? For James Harden, who's such a genius level passer and makes this look so easy all the time, why does getting Evan Mobley, who is ostensibly one of your top 2 players, why is it so hard to get this guy the ball? And then I watch these games too, and I'm like, there's so many times where Mobley is just parked in the corner, not really doing anything. To me, it all hinges on Mobley because I kind of know what I'm going to get from Harden, better or for worse. I know what I'm going to get from Donovan Mitchell, which is MVP level play. I know what I'm going to get from guys like Jalen Tyson and Sam Merrill. I just know. From Mobley, I just don't really know game to game. I think a little bit of it is on Mobley. A little bit of it is on Kenny Atkinson, who gets sometimes a little too happy to be like, let's really get Jalen Tyson going in the short roll. Let's really get Sam Merrill involved. And I just feel like Mobley gets forgotten about sometimes. But, again, Mobley, there's times where he just needs to be more aggressive too. So I don't know if I'm being too hard on the Cavaliers. I like I said, I'll come off of watching a Cleveland game and say I want more, and then I just won't watch a couple of games from them. And I'm like, you know what? They're actually pretty good. I feel better about the Cavs because theoretically they should be better than where they're at.
I mean, I will agree with you. Like, I was watching them. I don't know if this is the game you're referencing. I was watching them play the Magic last week, and they didn't have Allen, right? And, like, the Magic were just getting into the paint whenever they wanted. I understand, like, they're playing very small, right? Wade's the 4. Sometimes Harden's playing the 4 on defense, and then you have, like, Donovan Mitchell.
They'll run Dean Wade at the 5 in some of these lineups.
Yeah. And, you got Thomas Bryant playing, which, hopefully in the playoffs, God willing, we don't have to see that. And I'm just like sitting there. I'm like, I know defense is a team game. Okay. I'm not trying to be like one of those guys who's like, that Evan Mobley guy is not, but like, I'm sitting there. I'm like, if Evan Mobley really is like, that Victor Wembanyama, that Chet Holmgren defense unto himself, Rudy Gobert, like shouldn't be this easy. Right. It shouldn't be this easy for them to get into the paint. And, you don't seem like you're bothering anybody. And I know the Magic are a very strong, very physical team. So size doesn't bother them as much. But I think Mobley really has been kind of like, I think he is the guy. I think you pinpointed perfectly. That's like, I want more from this team. I think it's him, and I just don't know how we can get it because of, I think the team might just be too talented around him, and he needs to. There's like, he would be better if he was featured more, almost. You know what I mean? If he was more
Right.
of a, yeah.
But it's hard to feature him as much as they want because look, defensively, I think Mobley's fantastic. I don't think he's at the level of a Rudy Gobert or a Bam Adebayo.
That's
Or
what I'm saying.
obviously
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He gets pushed around by teams like Orlando with real size. Like he can still get pushed around, and so then in those instances, you need a Jared Allen in there. Okay, well now we got Jared Allen in there, and I do think the numbers bear it out. Cleveland's better with Allen and Mobley on the floor together, especially this season. But then it's like, okay, well then what do we do with Mobley? And then that's where he ends up getting marginalized offensively, and he still will fly around defensively and make a big impact. But you want more from this guy at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, a correction, I actually had no idea that Max Strus was back. You know how we were talking about before the show?
Yeah.
Like how like I'm like people like who don't even watch the NBA get certain news before I do. Like you said, like Max Strus just looked okay in the game he's playing. I'm like, what is he talking about? Like I started like hallucinating, and I was like, all I remember is going on Instagram and seeing this picture of like Max Strus's like incredible receding hairline and be like, man, I get that, brother.
So, you might have not recognized him because his hair. So he's got the hairline has come back a little bit, and now he's got this like
a lot of it
ninja ponytail thing. He's been growing his hair out for a few years now.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I could probably do it. Like like he's got like this ponytail thing at the top, and I'm like, somebody has to get in Max's ear. Like he's starting to get into Shia LaBeouf territory with some of these decisions that he's making. In terms of...
It reminds me of because it's the cat, like people I think are blaming it on Cleveland, right? It reminds me of when Jordan Clarkson went from the Lakers to Cleveland, and he came in there like, and I'm a huge tattoo guy, but he came in there with no tattoos, and the guy comes out, he's got like tattoos in his earlobe, and like he's just literally not a piece of skin without it, and everyone was blaming it on Cleveland. But yeah,
maybe it is. Maybe there's something about it. Maybe there's something about Cleveland.
I'm generally pro tattoo. We continue.
I am also pro tattoo. Not pro Max's hair though. Somebody needs
that's anti that.
So we've talked about Detroit, talked about Boston, talked about Cleveland. Let's talk about the Knicks. Talk about a team again. if we throw the phrase around up and down quite a bit, nobody has been more up and down than the Knicks. I think this season. The Lakers maybe give them a run for their money, but the Knicks to me take the cake here. I don't know what to do with the Knicks. There are times where I'm like, yep, clearly the best team in the East. They have all the tools. The one, I guess we start here. If there was going to be a year for the Knicks to make the finals, this was it, right?
Yeah.
Cleveland makes this major trade in the middle of the year, shakes up their team, and they were not good for the first part of the year. Boston's without Jason Tatum for the bulk of the season. Detroit's the number one team, but it just feels like nobody believes in them. And if the Knicks were going to try to get through a team, it would be a young team that's inexperienced like Detroit, a Boston team with question marks with their best player, and a Cleveland team that just can't seem to figure things out for some of the season. Everything has gone right for this Knicks team. They have been healthy for the most part. They even made good additions mid-season, like a Jose Alvarado, who I've really liked for them. Everything has gone right for this Knicks team. You invested in this starting five. You have completely mortgaged your future on this group, and yet you're the 3 seed. And I can't sit here and say that you are better than any of these other teams in the Eastern Conference. And that starting five, I guess, is a good place to begin because as much as they've invested in this group, you still get questions about, well, what is New York's best starting five? I cannot believe we're still asking this question basically 2 years into this. I know there's different coaches and whatever, but 2 years into basically the same personnel, and we're still trying to figure out who is the Knicks' best starting five. And by the way, the reason we ask that is because their starting five isn't that good, right? Like they're only plus 1.5 net rating as a group, which is positive, which is, being a positive is a positive, but it is not like you want that number to be up like plus 5, 6, 7, 8, especially given the resources that you've invested in this group and the fact that you have an MVP candidate at point guard in Jalen Brunson and an all-NBA guy like Cat, to pair with them. It just feels like they should be so much better, and they're not. I'll ask you a very specific question to start us off. What do you think New York's starting five should be?
What it should be? Okay, so this is actually a fantastic question because I had a stat I want to pull up, right? And I think this tells pretty much everything you need to know. So A couple of years ago, I was like, very interested in like death lineups, right? Every team
Hmm.
having like a death lineup. So I'm like, okay, looking back at past NBA champions, as far as cleaning the glass goes. And so basically every year, the only two exceptions are two Golden State Warrior teams, but they had already proven it, so it doesn't really matter as much. The NBA champion had a regular season lineup that played at least 300 possessions together, featured all or most of their best players, okay, and was a +9 per 100. I think
Mm.
this year we have like 10 teams with that could fit that description. Not all of them are championship contenders, but 10 teams that could fit that description. The Knicks are not one of them. They don't have a lineup like that, okay? That lineup you mentioned, not very good together. Now, the lineup that almost fits this description is the lineup of Brunson, McHale, OG, Cat, Mitch Robinson. They're a plus. Let me pull this
McBride.
up. No, McBride's not in
Oh,
this.
Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges. Sorry,
McHale Bridges. Yeah, sorry. Did I misspeak there?
you said you said Mikal. Like I would call him Bridges. You called him. I was like Kevin McHale. Like yeah.
But they were a plus 10.1, but they've only played 101 possessions together, which is a lot about, has to do with a lot with kind of Mitchell Robinson's,
Yeah.
you know, deteriorating. I don't want to use the word deteriorating because it sounds like he's like, like fading
On and
away. But
off
like,
availability.
yeah, off availability. There we go. So I think that really kind of sums it up for me, right? Where like when you have so with Jalen Brunson and Carl Anthony Towns, right? This is two weak links on defense but two guys you need to have on the floor, right? So that hurts your defense. I know they played better on the defensive side of the ball this year. They have a hard ceiling on their defense, no matter how you want to slice it. Okay. And so offensively, you have to be like a juggernaut to make up for it. But you can't be a juggernaut because Josh Hart's a non-shooting threat and he's too small to like really for it to really be okay with him. Like he has pushed the limits of being small and not being able to shoot as hard as you can, but like it's still not enough in the grand scheme of things, unfortunately. When you have Mitchell Robinson out there, like people think this is like, I think this is counterintuitive to a lot of people, but it actually boosts your offense a
Hmm.
lot because he creates so many second chances, right? And now with Steven Adams down, he's probably the best offensive rebounder in the playoffs. And then defensively, obviously, he's your best rim protector, for better or worse. So, like with him, but again, it's that huge question mark. Can he be available to give you 27, 30 minutes a game in postseason series? I feel a lot better about the Knicks if that's the case. But again, I just don't think they have the top end juice because of some of their major weaknesses. I will say I've loved how much deeper the Knicks got this year. I think Landry Shamet's having a heck of a year. He's been playing awesome. Um, I'm gonna butcher the two names, but Huck Porta and
Hmm.
who's the other guy? I can't say his name. Diawara.
Adora. Yeah.
They've played really nice. They're very solid guys. Tyler Kolek was like playing like Jesus Christ during the play-in tournament. I mean, the in-season tournament. He's kind of falling out of the rotation, but I'm liking what I've seen from him. Jose Alvarado was a good addition. Like they're deeper and they're scrappier now, but I think for that true top end, like they need Mitch Robinson for it to make sense.
So Robinson, I mean, we talked about the availability. He averaged 25 minutes a game 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And then it went down to 17 minutes a game last year where he barely played. Now 3 years ago he only played in 31 games. Last year he played just 17 games in the regular season. This year he's actually played more games. He's played 51 games,
Mhm.
which is good to be on the court, but he's only averaging 20 minutes per game. So he's been down from, routinely in his career 25-ish minutes per game, 27 minutes per game to now 20, and that's just where he's at 27 years old. But man, those 20 minutes feel so important to every Knicks game, don't they?
Mhm.
Like when he's out there without Cat, or even when he's in there with Cat, I really like those lineups. And so I would love to say start Mitch Robinson, bench one of these wings, and go in that direction. But that's also not realistic, right? You can't start Mitch Robinson and expect him to be available every single night, and you can't really play. It's hard to play him 20 minutes as also a starter. So if you're trying to manage his minutes, the best way to do it is to bring him off the bench. And so while I recognize that maybe their best lineup is one with Mitchell Robinson in it, in terms of who their starting five should be, I sort of put Mitchell Robinson over here, and I don't really
Mhm.
consider him an option just because of the minute stuff with him. I'm I really like the Alvarado addition because now when Jalen Brunson is out, and they had to play the Pacers the other night without Jalen Brunson, they started Alvarado, and all of a sudden Alvarado, not an elite defender, but tries really hard, and he's kind of a pest on that end. You put him and Cat together, and you kind of staple their minutes together. And now I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better about this in terms of defensive viability with these lineups, because they didn't really have a guy like Alvarado to play in that Brunson spot, right? Before it was either Clarkson or McBride or somebody like that. Who's
Well, yeah,
not
Deuce was supposed to be that guy, but I feel like
right.
he got better at offense, and he's like, I'm going to take a break off the defense
Right,
right now.
exactly. And Alvarado's
Yeah.
like, if I could just not play offense at all, I'd be fine with that. I just prefer to play the defensive end. So I like that. One quick note that I forgot to get to when we got to Detroit, because you mentioned the sort of those killer
Oh,
lineups.
this is like, what do they say in conversation 101? Like, this is the worst thing you could do. Circle back to an old conversation, but go ahead, man.
We're doing it. Their starting lineup, you can make the argument, is the best 5-man unit in the league. Technically, by net rating, Charlotte has the best starting 5 when you start to filter out, only the lineups that have played a lot together. But the Pistons are second in total plus minus. They're plus 129 in 510 minutes this season, and that's like 200 more minutes. That's a lot more minutes than the Charlotte lineup has played. So you can make a real argument that Pistons starting 5 is the best, which is another reason why I was very high on the Pistons. Then Cade got hurt, which is a big part of that 5-man lineup, obviously. All right, back to the Knicks. I'm almost at the point where I think they need to bench Bridges. And that might sound crazy because they traded 4.5 first-round picks for him, basically. But he's been bad. And he's been really bad in March. He's shooting 30% on threes. He's never really found a place in the offense where, strangely enough, I actually feel like OG Anunoby has done a better job figuring out a spot in this offense, and not just because he could park in the corner and drill corner threes. Like, he's actually being used on the ball a little bit. They'll bring him off screens, and he'll get to the basket. I really like when they run staggered screens for OG, he eats basically every single time because he gets a little bit of space, and he's able to use his size and his physicality to finish at the basket or obviously shoot off of that screen. Like, good stuff happens. I don't know when the good stuff happens for Mikal Bridges. And when it does happen, it almost feels like a fluke. And I don't want to be too hard on Mikal Bridges. He's a good basketball player, but there's a lot of miles on him. And I just wonder if some of that's starting to eat at him a little bit. He just hasn't been good. He has not been good enough for what they traded for him. But it doesn't mean he can't be good in a different role. It might be politically bad to take the guy that you traded so much stuff for and bring him off the bench. But I'm kind of there. Josh Hart is so important to this team in terms of doing all those little in-between things that, like, I don't think you can afford to take him out of that starting 5. I know that there's a shooting concerns and that you could put the big on him and then you put the wing on Cat, and that's when Cat really struggles. I get it. But there's a reason why Josh Hart keeps ending up in the starting 5. And I don't know that Bridges has given anybody a reason. He's shooting 30% on threes in March. His shooting percentage overall has been bad. He's doing nothing with the ball in his hands in terms of creation. Every time he has the ball in his hands, you're like, just give it to Brunson. He can just do a better job at this. And I understand that Mike Brown wants to diversify the offense a little bit, but to diversify the offense, you actually need the other guys to have the ball to do a serviceable job with the ball, and Bridges just hasn't. And so I'm at the point where I'm like, if you bring him off the bench, it actually might simplify his role a little bit more, where you can get him the ball in space with second units where Brunson is out. And maybe you figure out lineups that work that he can actually anchor the way that he did in some of his better times in Brooklyn. And then maybe you can find ways where, okay, well, in a pinch defensively, we bring Bridges back. Bridges has not been as good defensively as has been, during his Phoenix Suns heyday either, but he just hasn't been good enough. And I don't think he's done anything to say, yeah, you've got to put this guy in Sharpie in the starting 5. And I wonder if you bring him off the bench and almost maybe super 6-man him and try to make him your Andre Iguodala. Maybe he's just at that phase of his career.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add to that is, what do they call it? So would this be secondary source, right? When you hear from somebody who heard from a direct source.
Secondhand? Yeah.
Secondhand, right? But all I want to say about it is I just had this conversation last night with somebody who, again, is connected to somebody in the Knicks organization, and they're starting to, I think they're starting to see what you're seeing, is from what I understand. That's all I'll say, because that's literally all I know. But
so what you would go with in that other spot then? So if we're talking about Brunson, Hart, OG, Cat, right? So we're going to bench Bridges and we're putting Mitchell Robinson over here. Then that 5th spot, I think you can make a case for Landry Shamet, who for some reason is a very good basketball player with the Knicks and just not anywhere else. It's a weird thing.
That's not true. That's not true. If you're watching him during those Wizards years, like, he was always getting better at defense, man.
Anymore. I don't know. I don't think you start Alvarado. I think it's Shamit. I think that's the answer. I mean, he's a good shooter. He tries hard defensively. He's just a plug and play type of guy. It's Brunson, Shamit, Hart, OG, Cat. And what I like about that lineup is the pecking order is really clear. It's Brunson
Yeah.
and Cat, and then it's OG, and then you've got Shamit spacing. You've got Hart doing Josh Hart things. It's clean. I think it makes sense. You don't have to play Shamit 30 minutes a night, right? You still play Bridges off the bench. You still play Mitchell Robinson as much as you can. You still got these other guys that you want to get to, Alvarado and everybody else that we were talking about off the bench. But that might be the cleanest lineup.
Yeah. I like how you're holding a pen while you say all this. It's like you're actually like writing down the lineups right now.
I did. I actually wrote it down.
But that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I've been huge on Shamit. Like I was saying in the offseason, like the Knicks got to resign this guy. Like I remember when he was when they were playing the Pacers, I think it was game 5 when they were down 3-1. They win that game. They play their bench a lot. And I just remember him, like the ball pressure he was putting on Andrew Nemhart. I'm like, who is this guy right now? Like it's amazing. But yeah, I think he's a good 3-and-D player. He can attack a little bit on closeouts. I don't mind that. I guess until yesterday, like I had never even thought about the possibility of Mikal Bridges sitting the bench. So it's interesting to me. I will say Bridges did have a couple of huge moments last postseason against the Celtics, so he can ratchet it up for sure. But I do like the theory of that. The only thing that I worry about is how small they are.
Yeah,
with that lineup.
totally
Not that
fair.
Bridges. I guess what does it really matter? Because Bridges does not he doesn't play functionally large. He plays functionally like a defensive guard or whatever.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about most improved candidates. I think this is one of the more interesting end of season award races that we have going right now. What I like about most improved is you can kind of judge it in a lot of different ways. You can have somebody like John Morant or Tyrese Maxey win most improved. It kind of feels like we're getting away from that, where you get like these scoring type of guards who were really, really high picks that we kind of knew were going to be good, getting good. And I kind of feel like we're in a year right now where we actually might have a legitimate most improved guy where it's like, oh, wow, I didn't see this happening for this guy. And you want to give credit to this player for improving. But we don't have to go in any particular order. And I don't even want to make a decision on who the most improved player is. I just want to talk about some of the interesting candidates. We don't have to get through the whole list because we're short on time here. But most interesting, most improved candidate for Matt Issa is who?
Well, I just want to really quick. I'm sorry. I know we're not short on time, and I need to give concise answers right now. But I just want to add, like, I really vehemently despise like the way some people look at the award. Like you said, like with Tyrese Maxey and John Morant, it's like those guys deserve to be recognized. But that's like a whole different award. This most improved thing is like I think it's got to be a huge surprise factor to it, right? Like you never saw this coming, and like while nothing is guaranteed in this league, like a first round pick kind of like taking a nice leap from year 3 to 4. It's, I feel like it's higher probability than undrafted, Ryan Rollins, right?
Right.
Becoming like, okay, let's go Ryan Rollins first. I think there's a couple of interesting ones. I like
What's
Ryan
your point?
Rollins.
Really quick, to your point.
Yeah.
I think we need. I'm anti rules. Like I think the NBA has an adding problem, and we add way too many rules to this stuff. But if you're a top 10 pick, you should just be eliminated from most improved. Like you shouldn't be allowed to win this award.
That's
and
a
I would
great
even
rule.
go so far as to say if you've ever been an All-Star or on an All NBA team, including the year that you're up for this award, no, you don't get. This is for that next tier of player, right? That to me is what most improved is. It's just that next kind of tier of player. It's not for the superstars. Superstars get to win. Superstars get All NBA. Superstars get MVP. Superstars get to go to the All-Star game. That's what you get. This is for those other players. That's kind of how I view most of it. But go ahead. Let's start with Ryan Rollins.
Yeah, Ryan Rollins is a great one to me because, like, okay, if you look in like anything I wrote in the offseason, like you wouldn't find a dude higher on Ryan Rollins than me. And even I would say I thought he was like, like Patrick Beverley. You know what I mean? Like a good like 3-and-D guard, who you'd put next to like a ball dominant 2 and 3 or whatever, right? In that sense, I was thinking like Giannis, and he kind of just spaces the floor for him. He'd kind of be like, I guess, I don't know, one of those Houston Rockets guards when Hakeem Olajuwon was doing his thing. Can't think of a great comp right now, but now he's like he runs pick and roll. He takes step back threes. Like he's this on ball guy now. Like something I never would have seen this coming. Like so he was somebody who has starting to build a little role for himself, and then just completely surpasses it. And I think that's like what the award should be for. Or like, look at Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, we knew who this guy was. He was a career like 3-and-D guy, like a textbook 3-and-D guy. And then he comes to Atlanta and, a lot of it's opportunity, but he's efficiently scoring 20 points a game. He just dropped a 40 ball in the Orlando Magic the other night. Like, would you ever in your wildest dreams have ever expected Nickeil Alexander-Walker to do that? You know? So that's kind of like where I'm at, like those types of guys. Like, I don't, in my opinion, like Duren should not be in the conversation for this. I don't think Jalen Johnson should be in the conversation with this. Also, I don't think Deni Avdija should be in the conversation for this, because if you were watching Deni Avdija, he was doing the same thing last year, the last 30 games of the season. So he just put it all together. You know what I mean? These guys are incredible players. All of them deserve to be all-stars this year, but that's not what this award is about,
Right. So on Rollins, what really impresses me about him is the on-ball stuff, right? He's really grown as a pick-and-roll guy. He's not super awesome, but he's way better than what he's been in his career. You just never saw Ryan Rollins being a guy who would run pick-and-roll. That mid-range game has become a real weapon for him. Obviously, you can just look at the numbers. Like, his three-point shot is way earths and bounds better than what it was prior. This is more than just opportunity, and that's the other part of this. Like with the Deni thing, right? Deni to me is a lot more opportunity in Portland than he had, but I don't think he's gotten to be a better basketball player in a way that like Ryan Rollins has sort of transformed himself into a better basketball player than he was a year ago. Where I think Deni is better, like he's improved, but I don't know that he's like functionally a different kind of player, right? They've kind of figured out what they had and gave him the ball, and that's more good coaching than I think Deni. And I don't mean to take anything away from Deni Avdija. I think he's awesome, but he hasn't improved as much as somebody like Ryan Rollins has year over year. And that's why I put Rollins. I would push back on Jalen Duren because he's one of these guys who is a top pick that has gotten better, but I do think he's functionally different this year in Detroit than he was a year or 2 years ago. And that's kind of how I think about most improved. Like, what did you do to improve? Like, what did you do to improve as a basketball player? And that to me is like you didn't give yourself more opportunity. That was the coach. And maybe you took that opportunity and ran with it and you get credit for that. But I look at a guy like Jalen Duren, and yeah, he's gotten a lot more opportunity because Cade Cunningham is also leveled up, and now that pick and roll attack is what it is, and the Pistons are really good, so he's getting a little bit more shine right now. But I also think defensively he's better than he's ever been, right? He's getting out on the perimeter in a way that he never did. He's got a face-up game that they'll go to every once in a while that he just didn't have in the years past. So you could see like Jalen Duren put the work in to make himself a more versatile defender. His rim protection stats have never been better. His rebounding's never been better. Like, those are all natural improvement things, but to be more versatile defensively, to give yourself a little bit more things offensively to go to other than like, I'm just a lob threat. I think functionally he's just a better, different basketball player than he was a year ago. So I would put Duren on my short list of guys for most improved.
Okay. My thing is, he was kind of doing those things though at the end of the season, especially in that Knicks series, right? He was showing the face-up game. He looked like a better rim protector. Like in the second, because I remember midway through the season, like Pistons fans, like a lot of guys who really cover the team really know what's going on. We're kind of calling for Duren to get benched, like for Isaiah Stewart, because Isaiah Stewart's like this incredible defensive player. He works hard, this and that. And that's when Duren really started to ascend. He started to take defense a little bit more seriously. I think he's always had the physical tools. It's been more about the institutional knowledge, the consistent effort, that motor. And that's like, so it was starting to trickle in last year. I feel like there's a difference between improving and like a great player sharpening. Like Cade Cunningham did a lot of sharpening this offseason. Jalen Duren, he's like, he had a very, like he built, like, I know it's weird to think about because, like, once when All-Star voting happened last year, Jalen Duren was nowhere near anybody's radar. This year, he's an All-Star, deservingly so. But I think once the season was like near the end, like Jalen Duren was already like a top 50-ish player, like the way he'd improved himself. So I don't know. To me, it's just different than like a guy who's like maybe like going to have a 5-year career as a 3-and-D player, turning into like somebody who's going to start on a lot of basketball teams for the rest of his life than, Jalen Duren, who's incrementally getting better, right?
Totally fair. The other name that I want to bring up here, and this is actually the guy who might get my vote, but the team is on has pissed me off too much that I might just penalize him, and it might not be fair to him. Keontae George.
Is he even going to be eligible? Well, does that matter for most improved?
That's a good question. But
I know six-man rookie of the year.
Okay, he has improved, and this is the definition of a guy who has completely transformed how he plays, the way he plays, his skill set. I think a lot of people might look at the box score stats and just be like, "Oh, he's playing more minutes. He's got more opportunity. That's why his numbers are higher." he has completely changed the way that he plays basketball in a
Mm-hmm.
very meaningful way. First of all, he's finishing at the rim more. He's getting to the rim a lot more, and his shot plot has never been more efficient. He's getting to the rim. There's still work to be done there, but he's getting to the rim a lot more, and he's finishing at the rim. He was shooting 64% at the rim last year, 75% at the rim this year. I mean, that is such a dramatic leap that tells me, like, okay, you are a better, functionally different basketball player than you were before, where before I didn't count on you to make a layup, and now it's shocking when you miss it. And he looks more explosive. Like, I think he's done a lot of work on his body. I've I could say with pretty strong conviction that he's never taken basketball more seriously than he does now. Just hearing stuff behind the scenes about, like, this is a guy who kind of just walked into the NBA, not really sure what the NBA required, and really dialed it in this year. And you can tell, like, he's physically stronger, faster, more pop than he's ever had. Obviously, the three-point shot has gotten way more. He's gotten to be a better three-point shooter. The long mid-range is also better, which I like as a number. Like, I don't necessarily know that you need to be taking as many long mid-range shots as he does, but I like that I know that he's a good long mid-range to three. Like, he's better shooting the basketball further away from the basket than he's ever been, and that's apparent from all over the court, even when he does take those long mid-range jumpers. So, to me, and then the playmaking has obviously gotten better too. But as a scorer, I've completely reimagined what I thought Keontae George could be. I was really high on Keontae George even as in his rookie year. I didn't imagine this for him. When we talk about, like, Keontae's ceiling now, like, is Tyrese Maxey crazy? Like, I think he can be I think he could be an all-star. And I think a big reason for why Utah made the move for Jaren Jackson Jr. and why they basically decided, okay, we're ready to kind of move forward and move past this whole tanking thing, in part is because Keontae developed into the guy that they were hoping he could be.
I like that. I just worry that, again, the stupid 65 games rule will eliminate him. But I agree with you 100%. I remember when he was a rookie, I was like the pioneer of the Keontae over Scoot Henderson.
Oh, wow.
Vote. And then, like, last year was what it was. But yeah, he's done an incredible job just building out his body, becoming stronger. I remember when he was a rookie, I actually used to compare him to Darius Garland a lot. He had a lot of statistical indicators that were similar to Darius Garland, but now it's, like, funny because he's kind of, like you said, he's no longer like he's still crafty, of course. He still has, like, that slipperiness, but now he's much more forceful. So yeah, I like that call out. I think he would definitely be up there for me. I think a couple other guys who've improved a lot probably won't get.
You're right, by the way. It looks like he's going to miss it because he's only played 54 games and he's going to be out for another week probably. So he's probably going to.
I just don't know if the Jazz would chance it.
Yeah. Well, why risk winning games, right?
Yeah. Why risk your player getting an award that he deserves? But some other guys I feel like we need to mention. Neemias Queta. They just going from like being the quote unquote vulnerability of this Celtics roster heading into the season to, like, being like one of the top 20 centers in the NBA. I think that deserves credit, being the bedrock of that defense. Mm-hmm. I think Colin Gillespie, right? Like, I used to watch him when he was in Denver. I'm like, what's this guy doing here? Like, get off the floor, man. And now he's like, a starting caliber player for a pretty good Phoenix Suns team. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some other guys. Do you have anybody else am I missing here?
You mentioned Queta. I think Moussa Diabate deserves to be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Also,
for sure.
I mean, he's a guy who's maybe out of the league to, like, grabbing that starting spot in Charlotte, and also very similar to Queta, right? Becoming the bedrock of what they do defensively and their rebounding edge. I mean, it all starts really with Diabate. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Jeff Stotts, who does the in-street clothes thing on Cade Cunningham. Much more common in contact sports like the NFL, but there have been several cases in the NBA, including Jared Wallace, TJ McCollum, and Terrence Jones. Average time lost is 26 days, about 10 to 11 games.
Okay, so 26 days will put him right before the start of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because the playoffs starts April 18th. I'm actually standing up in a wedding, first day of the playoffs. I'm the best man. Congrats. I was telling my buddy, I'm like, man, you really screwed me. Like, this is like the worst day of the year. The worst day of the year for you to get married. And he's like, hey, dude, I apologize, but, like, this is probably, like, the most important day of my life. I think you'll be okay. And I'm like, this might be the most important day of my life, man.
It's the start of the playoffs. What don't you understand? Yeah. I have one thing every year come up during the playoffs where it, like, sidelines me from playoff basketball for, like, at least a day or two. Yeah. And it's always like a struggle. I'm like, all right, well, now I got to figure out how to catch up on basically, depending on what round it is, like 4 to 6 to 8 playoff games
Mm.
within a matter of hours before I miss the next set of playoff games. And so I don't know what that thing is going to be this year, but I know that my wife will inform me within the next month or so that we have a thing that we have to do. Matt, Issa, thanks so much for jumping on, man. This was a lot of fun. I'm sure we left a lot of meat on the bone, but maybe that's something we can get to next time.
Hey man, I had a great time. I'm just so like I just want to say this before we log off right now. I was like I'm a big fan, but I also thought this was a radio show, like literally a radio show. So I'm glad to know that they've modernized to podcasts.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. We got all sorts of things now in 2026. Thanks, man.
All right, I'll see you.